This video is about Summer Jam, one of the greatest rock concerts of all time, an epic jam session, and it happened about 50 years ago near Seneca Lake. And as you know, that's my favorite Finger Lake in the upstate New York area. On July 28, 1973, more than 600,000 people flocked to the Watkins Glen Grand Prix racetrack to attend that historic event featuring three of rock and roll's most famous groups at the time, the Grateful Dead, the Allman Brothers Band, and The Band. Hi, I'm Pam Pariso, and I do these videos on the history of Seneca Lake to remind people that I'm in real estate and I help people buy and sell properties in this area. Please do me a favor and subscribe to my YouTube channel. So let's talk about this huge gathering that took place near Watkins Glen at the famous racetrack about 50 years ago. Summer Jam was an epic gathering that marked a high point in the revolution of rock and roll and the counterculture movement of the 1970s. It was a time when young people questioned authority, challenged social norms, and sought new forms of expression and connection. It was the era of hippies, rebellion to authority, and back then, even more than now, live music was a bond that drew people from all over to meet and attend these things in person. Summer Jam reflected this cultural shift and brought together a diverse and passionate group of music fans from all over the country. A network of organizers, promoters, and volunteers planned and promoted Summer Jam, which succeeded since more than 500,000 people showed up. The main promoters were Shelley Finkel, who was 29 years old, and Jim Koplik, who was only 23 years old. They lined up the Grateful Dead, the Allman Brothers Band, and The Band, and they knew that these three bands would draw a huge crowd. They were all at the height of their popularity and creativity. Their vinyl records had been selling like crazy, and their music resonated deeply with young, idealistic audiences. The Grateful Dead was probably the most popular at the time, known for their awesome and spontaneous live performances. The Allman Brothers Band was also hugely popular, thanks to their soulful mix of blues, rock, and jazz. They were unique in that they had two lead guitarists and two drummers, and basically they created what we now call Southern rock. They just released their landmark album Brothers and Sisters, which included the hit single Ramblin' Man. The third group was called The Band, a Canadian-American rock band, another hugely popular and influential rock and roll group in the late 60s and early 70s. It was almost as famous back then as the music of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. The original plan was to sell 150,000 tickets at $10 a ticket, and in fact, about 32,000 of those tickets were sold in New York City. They actually planned for a crowd of 75,000, thinking it wouldn't sell out, but then later they upgraded their estimates to expect about 100,000 people to show up. Organizers had many logistical challenges like getting permits, hiring staff, preparing the grounds, figuring out food, bathrooms, traffic flow, coordinating with local authorities, and emergency services. They did all that thinking that maybe this 100,000 people or so would show up, but obviously that got blown out of the water to the point where an extra 500,000 people showed up, flooding the racetrack grounds, stopping traffic. They ditched cars to hitchhike in. It was a mob scene for miles around this hotspot. Most all of them were in their late teens or early 20s, although there were some in their 30s and 40s. Here's a newspaper clipping from the Elmira Star-Gazette the day before the concert with the headline, "Festival Goers Slow Route 17 Traffic." Now, back then, Route 17, that's what is now I-86. It was the main highway that got people to the Watkins Glen exit near Horseheads, New York, about 25 miles away. This newspaper article talks about how state police were starting to get concerned that traffic was bottlenecked bumper to bumper. It says that if traffic became unmanageable, the state police would put up roadblocks and would only allow local residents or legitimate concert ticket holders to pass. But that got blown out of the water as the people kept coming. So just picture this. About 600,000 people converge on the small village of Watkins Glen. At the time, it only had about 6 traffic lights. It's not that big. So as the people just kept pouring in and pouring in, law enforcement became so overwhelmed that they did just give up because the sheer number of people made it impossible to stop the flow. So basically, the concert took place in one day, and it rained most of that afternoon too. But the concert went on, and it was a triumph of music and community that literally made history. In fact, it went down in the Guinness Book of World Records. Of the 150,000 tickets that were purchased in advance, the rest were all admitted in what became a free concert. So Summer Jam wasn't really just a concert, it was a cultural phenomenon that reflected the spirit of the times. These young people, they were rebellious hippies. They were scoffing at tradition, and Summer Jam was a reflection of that cultural shift. It marked a turning point in the history of rock music. Here's another headline: Marijuana hawked at rock festival site. The article mentions about how marijuana was sold just like popcorn is sold at most ordinary events. Apparently, there was also LSD, mescaline, and of course, a lot of alcohol. Attendees camped out at the racetrack for several days and created these impromptu communities. They shared resources and experiences. So with all that massive humanity, there were some weird things that happened too. 4 people died in car accidents trying to get to the concert. One guy stabbed himself, and a 35-year-old skydiver jumped out of a plane with a parachute and accidentally lit a flare, which caught his jumpsuit on fire. He apparently had used a military explosive containing 4 ounces of TNT, and it was supposed to be attention-getting, but he died and his body was found a half-mile from the concert grounds in the woods. Nudity apparently was rampant. Long-haired scalpers were price gouging. They were selling 6 packs of beer for as much as $3. Soda sold for 35 cents and watermelons for $2. Those were the high prices. Police tended to look the other way at small offenses during the concert. Some farmers reported that their fences were trampled, their fields were used as restrooms and campsites. One farmer complained that his pig had been stolen, and the trash that was left behind, I guess, was beyond belief. So in the aftermath of Summer Jam, the concert received extensive media coverage and became a cultural landmark for a generation. It was widely considered the biggest rock concert ever, bigger than Woodstock, and it set a new standard for the size and scope of musical festivals. Most importantly, it symbolized the ideals and aspirations of a generation that sought a better world through music and social activism. This year, to honor the event, there will be a tribute concert, Summer Jam 2023. It'll be held on Saturday, July 29th at Lincoln Hill Farms in Canandaigua, New York. This show will feature performances from tribute bands of the original bands, plus they'll have Friends of the Brothers and Terrapin Flyer. Tickets are $35 if you buy them in advance, $45 at the day of the show. For more information, visit the Lincoln Hill Farms website, which I've linked below. Thanks for watching.